victim. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the head coach of the Australian swimming team, Mr. Leigh Nugent. And ask you what the gender-specific challenges you face within the swimming organisation.
Oh, look, I think the biggest challenge for any sport who's trying to develop females is the fact that sport probably has a diametrically opposed to the cultural sort of environment that our people grow up in now, and to be able to commit to the rigours of preparing for high-performance swimming faces its challenges with the pressures that are out there from society. So I think the cultural sort of aspects that you've got to create within your sport are particularly important, because there's a lot of pull in other directions, and young women can be influenced along the way, and hopefully we can get them through that point and swimming becomes their main objective, and I think we've been relatively successful at that.
Well, you're the head coach of Swimming Australia, which is both women and men. There's no differentiation between that. Why is that?
Well, we see ourselves as the Australian swimming team. It's not the Australian men's team or the Australian women's team as the media would like to promote. You know, back in the 90s and early 2000s, when our men were very successful and our women not so successful, and no one talked about the men's team. But all of a sudden, when our men struggled in 2006, because we had a fairly significant turnover with some retirees, it was all about our men's team not performing and the women. So for me, I always talk about our team, the Australian swimming team, and obviously we need to talk about our men and women on certain occasions, but generally they're there doing it together.
Well, you do have some wonderful role models in swimming, particularly for the women. What's your vision for the future of Australian swimming? I suppose you're perhaps unique in that you don't get them for very long, do you? I mean, I went through school the same year as Hayley Lewis, and she was a baby then, and she's already how many years post-swimming? It's a very short time span that you've got to work with them. How do you see the future going?
Can be, they're staying in the sport longer now. I think the government funding that's come on board has certainly helped that, and we're grateful for that. We see Libby Trickett coming back to the sport after a brief absence, and I think that will encourage more women to stay in for longer. I think the financial incentives that are there now to help women stay in and compete, and there's more support generally in society. So our vision is to keep going in the direction we're going with our female athletes and try to make them better and stronger.
How do you think the profile of women's sport generally can be improved?
I think it can be improved, but you've got to be able to position yourself so you can get exposure. You need to perform for a start that creates the attraction, and then have obviously a palatable product. So for us, it's important that we help develop our athletes to be able to present themselves in the media whenever they're called upon. And often in our environment, they're not just the highest profile athletes. You know, if they do well in a race, they're up there and straight after the event, and they need to be composed. So that sort of training starts when they're about 13 years old and doesn't stop.